After the reforms were passed into law in April of 24, you went on Joe Rogan's podcast in May.
Oh, shit.
Attention to the egregious civil liberties violations that were occurring at that time.
Ms. Gabbard,
Ms.
Gabbard, I ask you a question. Please give me the courtesy of responding. You said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that,
right?
that all of you and your
Gabbard,
wisdom.
Ms. Gabbard, my time is getting short, but I got to just tell you, after the reforms were passed into law.
Okay, I think it's just repeating itself over. We'll keep going on here. By the way, we're back up on. Let's double check here. We're back up on Twitter, I believe. Are we? Yep, we're back live on Twitter. Okay, that's solid. We'll pop out that chat. And then are we? I think we're also on YouTube. I think we're on YouTube live. Let's double check it. Oh, it says fear and loathing, but we're not fear and loathing, people. I'm gonna have to fix that chat that thing as well. This is a big horky dorky problem tonight. Okay, let's play this one here.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Gabbard, when Russia was denying us use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DOD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
and
not
I
in our
understand,
interests.
I appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, Al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable by anyone.
Right, and that's just embarrassing in general. Okay, so Clint says here, and by the way, I'm back on YouTube. I tried to. I'm sorry, it crashed over. You know, honestly, the more stable network seems to be, and it even crashed out on X. The more stable one seems to be Rumble. So, and I'll say this about Rumble, okay? Pseudosnarks was in here and he's like, I'm live. I finally, put the notifications on and hit. The best notifications I've found are found over on Rumble. So I subscribe to a bunch of shows that I want, and I get those pop-ups, boom, starting to stream. And I'm like, ready to go. That's where I see Jose's a lot. And then it's a much better notification for me than actually Rumble. Than YouTube are. And so you can find me over there, and that's the best. Maybe that's the platform. I should be able to get your chats coming in here either way. I mean, look at this. No Joke Anti-Woke is the one that notified me. YouTube crashed with finally one live and it dies. So there you go. That's the one. He let me know about that. Okay. Clint said, these confirmation hearings are designed to destroy the nominees. Best I can tell, they've only destroyed the reputations of every Democrat senator. I agree. Bobby, Tulsi, Kash have absolutely obliterated these people. Completely not true. It's one of the greatest things I've ever witnessed. I don't know what you've watched, and the reason I say that Clint is wrong is because they haven't had a chance to obliterate them. They refuse to let them answer questions. They refuse to let them do anything but, answer this yes or no. So you're not obliterating them. You're just embarrassing. So this first part is correct. They're destroying their own reputations. They look pathetic. I get that. I totally agree. But I haven't seen the obliterations on the other side. Now, Tulsi did a good job there, but a lot of it is simply them is not. Shannon says he's always wrong. The problem you have is that they do try to politicize, be political in these stances, and they're like, look, you can't answer yes or no type of questions. Will you do, X, Y? It doesn't work. So I don't necessarily think that they've obliterated anybody because they haven't had a chance to. Okay. Now, as an example, Tulsi didn't stand by the brave that Snowden was. Yeah. So he committed, I didn't even know if he should be, committed crimes, you're saying, okay, but is it a crime to under the whistleblower statutes, these guys said he should be fined, but the problem is that they don't like it because a lot of the stuff he came out and said at the time was against Obama and whatnot. Okay, let's see if this is any better. See if she can do better here.
As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Well, Syria is now controlled by an Al-Qaeda offshoot. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Well, Syria is now controlled by an Al-Qaeda offshoot. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria.
Quickly, Aaron Mate says, Tulsi Gabbard quotes Jake Sullivan's February 2012 email to Hillary Clinton. Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Then he points out that Syria is now controlled by Al-Qaeda offshoot. Gabbard has long been smeared because she declined to take Al-Qaeda's side in Syria. And we're going to talk about that with the, oh my God, hi Tyler. Oh my God, hi JC. How you doing? We're going to talk about that with the gas, remember, what's his name? Gassed his own people. We'll talk about that one in a sec. But let's get back to...
My uncle awarded John F. Kennedy the highest civilian honor to Francis Kelsey. Francis Kelsey was a young scientist at NIH who came in and objected to the panel having approved thalidomide for American children. All the scientists that day, they were doing it in Europe, all the scientists that day and the scientific panels that work for the agency approved, green-lighted thalidomide. She stood up and screamed and fought and risked her job and risked her reputation, and she blocked it in our country. 3 years later, everybody recognized that she was a hero and a savior of our children, because we were not getting the kind of terrible, diabolical deformities as they were experiencing in Europe. My uncle gave her the highest civilian honor because she questioned science and was courageous enough to stand up and say, I don't care what happens to me. This cannot happen.
Okay. Another one from Kash. Let's see what he's saying.
Who had no right being in this country.
Here we go.
You should go back to where you came from. You belong with your terrorist home friends. A detestable sand nigger.
There you go. Detestable sand nigger. That's the one we wanted. What else we got here? I don't know that I want to play. Okay, let's play this 30 minutes because I think this is kind of important. Give some context to Snowden. Okay. Tulsi did not necessarily stand up and say, yeah, the guy's brave. Okay. What do you want to do? He pointed out all the problems you guys are and everything, and that's fine because she's in a weird place now where she now is coming in to take over this. So you have to kind of be somewhat reserved, but she wants to get, nominated. Okay, so was he a traitor or not? Glenn Greenwald, by the way, was the one approached by Snowden, and he worked there for The Guardian, I think, at the time, and he wrote all the articles and stuff about it. And he is the one, he talks about it here. Let's go.
Obviously, the question of what Edward Snowden did, whether he did everything exactly the way people think he should have, is a point that can be debated, has been debated for a long time. One thing I will note is that at the time of the reporting, there was a lot of support both from the left and the right, the kind of anti-establishment populist wings of both parties. I remember it very well. And it was the centrist bipartisan establishment wing that was enraged by what Edward Snowden did, because what he did, I think we have to remember, is in this question of whether he's a traitor, let's remember that, like Tulsi Gabbard, Edward Snowden, after 9/11, went to enlist in the United States Army. He heeded his government's call to go to war to defend his country. He then went to work for the CIA and the NSA, and only there did he discover that the NSA was doing things that it was never supposed to be doing, namely turning its very powerful surveillance tools onto its own citizenry. It was always supposed to be directed outward, and spying on Americans without warrants in ways that Obama's national security DNI, his chief intelligence officer, James Clapper, falsely denied to Congress that they were doing. And he felt duty-bound to come forward and let his fellow citizens know. And some of the programs we were able to reveal as a result of what he did ended up being declared both unconstitutional and illegal. And none of the people on this committee are angry about that. They're only angry at him for having exposed it, because these people on this committee have supreme loyalty to the part of our government that's secret and that has been abusing its power, which is why President Trump picked her to go in and confront that. The other thing I want to say, Megan, this idea of who's a traitor or not, being a traitor means you tried to betray your country, you tried to harm your country and help your enemies. Edward Snowden had this archive of information that he was entitled to have. He had classified top secret security clearance. Think of all the things he could have done with that archive. He could have sold it to some foreign government or some group of non-state actors that made a huge amount of money. He could have passed it secretly to America's enemies. He could have dumped it all on the internet without regard to what it was exposing. He did none of that. He came to American journalists, myself, who was working at The Guardian, Laura Poitras, who was working with The Washington Post, and he said, I only want you to reveal what is necessary to reveal that's in the public interest for Americans to know. And all the decisions that were made about what got released and what weren't were decisions that we as journalists made. He played no role in deciding what was released and what wasn't. And the vast majority of the archive to this very day was never released because we acted in accordance with his very conservative views about how the archive should be treated. So again, you can dispute things he did, say he should have done things in a different path. But the idea that he was a traitor when he could have done so many things to harm the United States and everything he did was about protecting the privacy rights of American citizens as guaranteed by the Constitution that courts said were being violated, that's why Tulsi defended him. Not because she believed everything he did was perfect, but because she knew that he was the only person with the courage to come forward and risk his liberty and risk his life, which he did in a very courageous way, simply to let American citizens know what their government was doing to them in the dark. And I think this kind of histrionics about demanding that she call him a traitor is ridiculous.
Now, in the other party's defense, he's gay, Greenwald. So, I mean, okay, maybe This is more of a favorable comment here, but this is also problematic to me, which is this is still your grand. Let me do this here. I got to figure out a way to be able to see the health of the stream during the show, and for some reason it's not. Okay, so this chick here, Mrs. Britt. Okay, not bad looking. 3 minutes here, but she wants to let Kash Patel talk. So here's I just want to play her part of letting him talk, but it's
really not gotten to hear you talk about the FBI.
Okay, so we're at 0 seconds here and 0.4. She's 4 seconds. We haven't heard you talk about the FBI.
And so I would love, you mentioned in the 7 minutes that it takes one of these senators to ask you questions, that unfortunately there are, I believe you said, 3 rapes, 2 overdoses, 1 murder. Look, yesterday we signed the Laken Riley Act and the law President Trump did. And when we look at what's happening across our country with the surge of illegal migrants that have come in, when we look at fentanyl overdoses being the leading cause of death between the ages of 18 and 5, I've heard you say you want to tackle that. When we look at parents like Laken Riley's mother yesterday, as she talked about her heartbreaking loss that should have never happened, Rachel Marin's family there, Sarah Root's family there, Jocelyn Nungary's family there, they deserve an FBI that is focused on finding these criminals and getting them out of here. So my question for you is, I'd like for you to talk about that. You've talked about cleaning up America, making it safe and secure for its people. Please tell the American people your plans.
Okay, so she spent a minute telling him she wanted him to talk. Now, she does give him more time. I just thought that was interesting because it's so indicative of people in Washington wanting to hear themselves talk so much. Okay. Tulsi is a Russian mouthpiece. This guy, by the way, Michael Bennet, he's from Colorado. He's an attorney. He went, I think, to Yale. But he was in charge of like the school district for a long time. So he's kind of a teacher, which means he's just a royal piece of shit. Let's hear what he was really.
Are you aware that your comments about proxy wars and Russia's legitimate security concerns, to quote your own words, are in alignment with what the Russians have said to justify their invasion of Ukraine?
So?
Yes or
Senator,
no?
I don't pay attention to Russian propaganda.
So
My goal is to speak the truth.
So once again, he says something. It's kind of a declarative statement. Is it a question? He pauses, so it allows her to start to talk, and then he just interrupts her. He's not interested in it. This is they need to redo this whole thing, right? They need to redo this situation, the scenario or the procedures of how this works, because one, it just makes them look stupid. But I will say it goes both ways, like many of
regardless of whether you like it or not.
I'll take it. That's fine. You said you are used to speaking truth to power.
Yes.
Please go to the Alex Jones.
Okay, so then Alex Jones comes in here and interrupts. Okay. Boom! Watch Kash Patel stand up to the personal attacks of Senator Klobuchar.
Shut down.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
You got anything you want to say, Mr. Patel, before I go on to Senator Lee?
Simply this. If the best attacks on me are going to be false accusations and grotesque mischaracterizations, the only thing this body is doing is defeating the credibility of the men and women at the FBI. I stood with them here in this country. In every theater of war we have, I was on the ground in service of this nation. And any accusations leveled against me that I would somehow put political bias before the Constitution are grotesquely unfair. And I will have you reminded that I have been endorsed by over 300,000 law enforcement officers to become the next director of the FBI. Let's ask them.
Okay, so he does, look, to Clint's defense, Kash Patel does a very good job of when he has a chance to say it. Dude's smart. He's been there. He's been in the heat. He can definitely do a good job. I think he does a little bit better job than all three of them because, one, he's better than Tulsi and RFK, but RFK he doesn't have the forceful voice to just take over. And none of them are able, and by the way, they're also in a situation, and I wonder about the coaching, if it's simply to the fact of like, hey, you don't just you just kind of sit there and let it happen. And I think that's what it is. They all get, in a sense, a little bit raped.
Mr. Chairman, I am quoting his own words from September of 2024. It is his own words. It is not some conspiracy. It is what Mr. Patel actually said himself.
Unless you...
Okay, we keep going. Let's go here.
And will you...
Okay, this is a good one.
Do you believe and will you insist that Medicare continue to negotiate prices with the pharmaceutical industry so we can substantially lower prescription drug costs in America?
President Trump has made it very clear to me that he wants to negotiate.
Negotiate is a big word, Bobby. It's a big word.
It's the word you just used, Senator.
Yeah, but no. Do you?
Okay, maybe I'm coming around to some of the Clinton stuff. It's on clips though. When I watched the entire thing, they had very few chances to do something like that. Okay, let's go to now. This is
in your opinion, what makes a scientist?
Wait! Shut the fuck up, bitch. Alex Jones says here, RFK Jr. pledges to root out corrupt government scientists in the NIH, much to the dismay of why are they all capital? Is that the headline? Okay. That's odd.
In your opinion, what makes a scientist or a doctor qualified to serve at the National Institutes of Health?
A scientist who's devoted to empirical methodology, to evidence-based science, scientists who understand the importance of replication, the importance of publishing raw data and being open and transparent about it, the importance of publishing peer review. We have, NIH has overseen over the past several years, the precipitous decline in American health. There's 91,000 people at HHS, and are you suggesting that some of them should not be held responsible for that decline? They were in charge of protecting our health.
Let me just insert here.
Let me just finish.
But let me just say this, because I only have 3 minutes left. I don't set the rules here, but I ask the questions. And the question is really whether you intend, as you said, to substitute essentially your judgment for the judgment of these professional scientists and doctors.
I'm not going to substitute my judgment for science. Of course, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, listen, the New York Times just did an article last week talking about the fraud, the 20-year fraud, 800 fraudulent studies produced by NIH on amyloid plaques, and not allowing any other hypothesis about the cause of Alzheimer's.
Well, how will you decide, Mr. Kent?
It's fascinating to me that after COVID and all the misinformation, this body is so defending that premise, right? Kash Patel coming in talking about, they were all up in arms about the pardoning of the J6. And they're just like, oh, please, people, you're so self-righteous. It's unbelievable. And then with Tulsi, it's like, yeah, but what about all these lies that there's weapons of mass destruction, constant stuff that's out there that's just bullshit that we all just, and they're, by the way, they're defending it to the end of the earth. That's what's fascinating to me, that they use it as a cudgel, right? When there's nothing
which
really
scientists?
The ones
are bad scientists. Are they the ones who disagree with you?
The ones who are corrupt, the ones who have been doing science like the amyloid plaque studies that were fraudulent.
These doctors, let me ask you a question. Do you have a medical degree?
Do I know?
Unless...
Okay, fuck this. Alex Jones coming over this stupid. No, but that's a dumb question, because of course he doesn't have a medical degree and everyone knows it. They introduced him as someone who has a law degree and a master's in something, baiting or something. I don't know why I found all these Alex Jones clips. This one says, RFK Jr. exposes major flaw in NIH scientific study protocol and vows to major changes when confirmed.
Gold standard means real scientific research with replication of studies, which very rarely happens now at NIH. We should be giving at least 20% of the NIH budgets to replication. We should make sure that all the science is published with the raw data. We should make sure that the peer reviews are also published. And I'll give you a quick example. 20 years ago, NIH scientists did a a study on amyloid.
Okay, we just saw that one. They keep doing the same. Let's take what's this free cap?
Posting that at the top of that page?
Senator, I had nothing to do with the creation of that meme.
Is that you reposting it was my question.
And that's me at the top.
You said FBI agents were responsible for the violence on January 6th, and I quote you here, beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that what you said?
That's completely incorrect, and I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
I'll give you an opportunity in writing, but this is my time now.
Have at it.
An Inspector Attorney General investigation found that that was false. And you said we should impeach judges who rule against Donald Trump, who are, in your words, political terrorists.
I mean, I don't understand the point of like having these placards up that they post up here. It's such a waste of all this money, and you're not being able to even, luckily the TV isn't even, cameras aren't focusing.
When this nominee tries to explain all this away, keep one thing in mind. He's testified under oath before a Colorado judge who presided over a Trump case in which he was a witness, and the judge found, and I'm quoting here, he was not a credible witness. His testimony is not only illogical, but
And what happened with that ruling? What happened with that ruling? It went to the Supreme Court, and what did the Supreme Court say? Not even, it shouldn't, we're not doing this.
Completely devoid of any evidence in the record. That's from a judge.
Oh, a judge. Once again, are they sacrosanct? Are there judges out there that are just complete hacks? Of course, just like anybody else. Any of these people up here could be a judge.
This is a dangerous time, and I ask all my colleagues to consider whether these plain comments by this person and by his own Trump administration colleagues should be given a blind eye, just overlooked, or whether, like the warnings of pardoning violent January 6 offenders,
Tom Cotton, who we just heard was a traitor. Should we listen to calling Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset? I'm not really interested. Here we go. This is good. Schiff is a complete piece of shit. So let's watch this one. Ready to go.
I want you to turn around. They're Capitol Police officers.
Now, Benny Johnson says Adam Schiff is getting obliterated by Kash Patel today. So let's see if this is an obliteration, because I don't know that they are. I mean, it depends on which side you are, and you tend to believe Kash, which I do. But I mean, it's just grandstanding on. So anyway, let's
behind you. They're guarding us. Take a look at them right now. Turn around.
I'm looking at you. You're talking to me.
No, look at them. I want you to look at them if you can, if you have the courage to look them in the eye, Mr. Patel, and tell them you're proud of what you did. Tell them you're proud that you raised money off of people that assaulted their colleagues, that pepper sprayed them, that beat them with poles. Tell them you're proud of what you did, Mr. Patel. They're right there. They're guarding you today. Tell them how proud you are.
That's an abject lie, and you know it. I've never, ever accepted violence against law enforcement. I've worked with these men and women, as you know,
you
my entire
glorified
life.
it in song,
and I did not make a single dime out of it.
In song. Well, let me.
How about you ask them if I have their backs, and let's see about that answer.
Let me ask you this.
Okay, that is pretty good. that is, I don't know about obliterated, but that's pretty good. How about you ask them who has their backs? That's
Mr.
reasonable.
Patel, let me ask you this. If an FBI director promoted a song of people who sprayed pepper spray in the face of an FBI agent, would you say they were fit to be?
See, this is the problem. This is the problem with Kash and some of these others. Yes, it was completely ridiculous. No one died because they kept bringing up the, got pepper sprayed, and the next day he died. What's wrong? Kash Patel has done a lot of these. He's testified. He's talked a lot about what piece of that the J6 was what wasn't what it seems to be. Yeah, just come back at him, but you can't do that, because then you will get a
director.
Mr. Schiff?
Yes or no? Would they be fit to be director?
I am fit to be the director of the FBI.
If you were the FBI director and you promoted a song with someone who beat an FBI agent with a pole, would you say you were fit to be?
Why are they so pansy waist about
FBI
songs?
director?
Mr. Schiff?
And let's be honest. why was Kash Patel doing some sort of a J6 choir promoting?
I am fit to be FBI director based on my 16 years of government service.
And yet you did all these things, Mr. Patel. You can say, oh, I support law enforcement, I decry violence against law enforcement. You can say all that. It's what you did, Mr. Patel, that matters.
Right. So this is the disingenuousness, which people aren't good. I don't know. I think he did bring some things up about like the summer of love, all the riots and whatnot. Like Schiff is all worked up about how dare you even do a song about someone who may have gone after a police. You know what? This is why I would never get nominated or past any confirmation for a few reasons. But let's talk about the one that we're talking about here, which is I would dig into this. Yeah. Okay. I don't think that was, just because you wear a uniform, you're some sort of protected person. That is a weird thing to have some sort of protected class, and we just give it to these randos out there. Okay. I mean, so I would probably make a fool of myself, but that's what I would say. My cat's going crazy here. Let's take a look here. Oh, this is an important one. Let's go back to the beginning.
Gotta have them ribs. And pussy too.
I did not call Senator Sanders an ignorant slut.
It's an attempt to make TikTok better. Tic-tac-toe, a winner.
Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him...
But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Well, at real Donald Trump, at least I will go down as a president.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Basically, I'm here to announce that we're building Iron Man.
Let Trumpomania run wild, brother.
This is radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who?
Goat's milk latte drinking, avocado toast eating.
I just have one thing to say.
There you go.
Wakanda forever. Paid for by Kamala Harris.
It's the dumbest shit we got going on. Edward Snowden broke the law. We already talked about that. This is another crackpot, crack senator. Oh, poster. Maybe she's a good one. I don't know. I can't really do. There we go. This is something maybe we need to talk about.
New recruitment goal for the FAA.
Let's go here.
3% of its...
We're talking now. Stu Bergier of the Glenn Beck Show did a thing a few years ago about we're going to have a big traffic error incident, and he did this documentary on it, and I want to see. I keep
workforce
seeing some clips,
should be disabled, and not just any form of disabled, but quote, individuals who suffer from total deafness in both ears, total blindness, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric disabilities, and dwarfism, end quote.
You wrote a letter to the FAA about this specific thing. What was their response?
Yeah, so I wrote a letter to FAA Administrator Whitaker explaining that, this is a problem. Almost every adult American, even those who suffer from disabilities, you can almost always find something that someone can do. But there are some jobs that you might not want to assign to someone with certain impairments.
The FAA never responded to his letter. We reached out too and asked if they'd provide someone to discuss the controller shortage, the biographical assessment, the rise in close calls, and what they've been doing to keep our skies safe. Unlike Senator Lee, we did get a response. They declined to go on camera, but provided a written statement about how hiring more controllers is a top priority, before adding that they, quote, implement engaging hiring campaigns to reach more youth from diverse backgrounds.
There we go.
Let's talk about the FAA. You wrote a bill to try to improve it.
Yes.
What can we do?
So yeah, I've introduced legislation to make sure that the air traffic control hiring decisions are based on qualifications, that they're not based on identity politics, that the air traffic controller tests, the aptitude test that they take utilize peer-reviewed, accepted, merit-based considerations.
So what stops it from happening?
They say that possession is sometimes 9/10 of the law. And something similar could be said of people who run federal agencies like the FAA. If they're in that seat, they're getting to make the rules.
This is an issue, though, that I think should have bipartisan support. Even, I mean, we've seen Patty Murray has been active on this in the past. It feels like this is all lining up to actually happen, but it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen in part because many people are not aware of it. And that's why I'm so pleased whenever any member of the news media chooses to report on it. This shouldn't be difficult at all.
Interesting. So, you know, we obviously had a problem with a plane going down, and we'll talk about that. He doesn't have a medical degree, but he has had brain worms. Yes. Judges are 100%, don't you know? Look at Ketanji, the brightest legal mind. We was president. For all the whining and crying I've heard about the new Trump term, I'm pumped. Think these cabinet picks are great. I don't necessarily have a problem with them either. Like I said, I could quibble over a lot, especially the kind of the Israel pro-Israeli connection, which is disturbing to me. But I think, you know, for the most part, you see the opposition and you go, okay, well, maybe I'm not so bad coming to. By the way, Rumble, that's the way. I know I started back up on here on YouTube. You could do that, but you know, Rumble's really the way to go. I've got this cat in here. She's freaking driving me crazy. Okay, is there any more of this? Lindsey Graham is not an impressive person. And once again, you know, he'll spend all his time. Let's go there.
Get into those details with my family here.
Oh, let's get into a few of them.
Oh, that's the sand nigger one.
Well,
so he just wanted to basically have him say that.
I
think this is an important part here to talk about Tulsi Gabbard and the OPC whistleblowers, which were the Assad gassing his own people. She kind of came out with it, but anyway, let's play this one.
Going back to Tulsi Gabbard, there's a very revealing moment in her hearing today when Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat of Arizona, tried to challenge her over her skepticism of chemical weapons allegations lodged against the Syrian government. And for the first time in a U.S. government setting, Tulsi Gabbard gave a mention, an acknowledgement of the story that is censored across the U.S. media, across the U.S. government, and that is of the brave OPCW whistleblowers who challenged the cover-up of their investigation in Duma. Their actual findings found no evidence to support the Trump administration's, the initial first Trump administration's claims that the Syrian government committed a chemical attack in Duma. Their findings were censored. There's a documented cover-up. It's exposed in a series of leaks that I've reported on. And Tulsi Gabbard mentioned these OPCW whistleblowers and said that they should be listened to. That's the first time that's ever been said in a U.S. government setting. And it's very, very important. It's a very important precedent. And even more telling was Mark Kelly didn't have a thing to say in response. He did not try to rebut her at all.
Right.
Okay, he's on with that. But I want to get to the, that's an embarrassing one. That's another one. That's another good one. That's not the one I'm looking for. It's talking about the Syrian part, and basically what I think it's Glenn Greenwald breaks this down, which is Mark Kelly, astronaut guy. He talks about, you know, the intelligence community has debunked this whole situation. But what he read from, it's not the intelligence community. It's the White House press corps, or, you know, their own press not the press corps, but the White House spokesman putting out memos saying X, Y, and Z. It's not the intelligence community. It's the White House saying this. They were on two different occasions, which makes it a little bit different. So you hear a lot of grandstanding. It goes back and forth on all sides. There was any of this. Okay, this is. There we go. I think this is an important one, and maybe we'll go out from here. But let's play this one. This was yesterday. It's day 2 of.
Going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? That's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies; it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and
no,
protecting
no, no,
their
no.
interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
Almost $2 million. I mean, you're not.
2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
contributions from workers all over this country. Workers.
You were the single.
I mean, if you're a CEO, you're not working.
Not a nickel from corporate tax.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in the industry.
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right, but.
Oh, out of 200 million. Okay, so therefore it's all okay. And by the way, this is perfect. I don't care if you smear these people because that's what they're doing as well. The whole concept of the show today is really about the disgusting nature of this. And I don't think we played enough clips that really emphasize how disgusting these people are, which is the cutting them off, reading out a litany of facts that are not true, and then making them do a yes or no question at the end. And do I have a lot of sympathy for the ones that are going in, that got elected here or nominated by? No, not either. There's kind of my problem too, is like, I wanted them to stand up a little bit more. I wanted them to be a little bit more brave about their part. Okay, let's take a look at because this is just crazy. This crash that happened, maybe I should open this up a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. This crash is sad, and it shouldn't have happened. I don't know if we have any kind of good conspiracy theories left with it, but let's just make this so we can all see it just fine. So evidently a helicopter crashes into a plane that's landing. The plane had like 67 passengers coming from Kansas. A lot of I guess there was a bunch of figure skaters on board that had something going on over there. Pretty sad because no survivors of the helicopter or the plane.
These videos obtained exclusively by CNN show previously unseen angles of the collision between an American Airlines flight and a US Army Black Hawk helicopter. In the first video, the Black Hawk can be seen flying at speed over the Potomac from the left side of the screen. The American Airlines plane can be seen flying towards the airport before the two collide, causing a mid-air explosion and fall into the river. In a second video, you can see the Army helicopter and American Airlines plane travel toward each other.
I mean, how do you not see that? I don't think the plane could do much to avoid the helicopter, but you'd think the helicopter would be able to avoid.
After the collision and subsequent explosion, the airliner can be seen spinning into the water, and the Black Hawk is also seen falling into the water.
Crap, that's pretty nasty. Let's get last one we're going to show
China
Tulsi Gabbard.
Concerning because I don't think it fully appreciates China's perspective towards the United States. For example, with regard to TikTok. Your past statements have essentially said that requiring domestic ownership of TikTok is a violation of civil liberties, and the national security concerns are complete BS. Can you explain why you have this view on TikTok?
The position that I previously made, obviously not as a member of Congress, as you consider the TikTok legislation, were centered around the protection of Americans' First Amendment rights and the lack of data privacy legislation, frankly, that would apply to TikTok, Facebook, X, all of these different social media applications that collect on us as users of these applications. There were other provisions within that legislation that granted very vague and grandiose authorities to the president on deciding which private companies are or are not a national security threat.
So let's talk about China specifically, because this is where I want to make sure you understand what's at stake. We've had concerns over many years that when China owns infrastructure, it can manipulate that infrastructure. It can use it for spying. It could use it, turn it on or off. And you've actually address some of the most recent cyber attacks that we believe China had relevant participation. The challenge is if China owns.
Let me just say, anybody in here that's interested in joining in this conversation, I've come to the point where especially when you're watching something here where they're so exercised and upset about Kash Patel as an example, that he is somehow was promoting or was in a video with J6 Choir. They're just, it's the biggest, my cat's going, it's the biggest, most important issue right now that they are just so up in arms and exercised about. When you see that and you know it's total bullshit, when you hear them so concerned about Russia or you're so concerned about China, does it make you more or less likely to believe their bullshit? Or maybe it's true. Maybe I'm the one because, and I think it's them crying wolf so much when you're wanting me to be all worked up about Kash Patel in a J6 Choir. Now you want me to be all worked up about China. And I'm like, and you spent a lot of capital on the other part. Am I supposed to think that you still have some left for this? This is the concern.
Owns TikTok. It means they can spy on the United States, on the American people. It can take all the data from our children. It can change the narrative about what people are talking about through their algorithms. If it wants to create misinformation or malign foreign influence, it's very easy. So can you understand why it's so important that we require domestic ownership of TikTok?
I understand the concern, Senator. I would just reiterate some of my concerns that I stated in the past about how this really is an issue about data privacy, because so much of what is collected by all of these, even U.S.-owned companies, can be sold to any country.
I get it, and that is a bigger issue for Congress to wrestle, and I am all in for that conversation. But I want you to appreciate China. What is your view with regard to Taiwan? Do you think it is something that your intelligence efforts will understand how important our relationship is with Taiwan, specifically on chips manufacturing? I think President Trump has most recently decided to have a 100% tariff on all chips from Taiwan. And your statements, particularly about the bill we passed, the CHIPS Act, to make sure that domestic production is invested in, and so that we have that supply chain, and so we have that national security. But your public statements about the CHIPS Act have been very negative and don't seem to appreciate how important that independence is for our national security, to be beholden to China, to be beholden to Taiwan, to be in a place where we can't do our own national intelligence.
Yes, Senator, I fully support the investment in building and strengthening our own domestic capabilities. If I recall, that legislation had a lot of other provisions in it that had nothing to do with the production of our own capability, and I felt were a distraction away from and a potential obstacle towards achieving that.
So you will recommend to the president that we continue to invest in the semiconductor industry in the United States for our own independence as well as our own national security?
Yes, Senator, and I would base my recommendations on a number of all of these issues, if confirmed as D&I, based on the full assessment of the intelligence picture.
White, what do you think? Is this appropriate outfit? Look, people call her a smoke show, and then they're like, oh, look at this dump on her. I'm not super impressed. She's okay. The face, kind of the makeup, the complexion is a little off. The white suit, I don't know. Not my cup of tea. But not the worst. So perhaps that's fine. Trump has a lot of good-looking women that he's nominated. Some of them are just not at all what I need. Your mic needs gain. That's what David said. Is that you're just saying that now again? It still needs more gain. Let's go here. Mike, I'm at 120% with it, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. I'll work on working on my mic here. Okay. Yeah, compared to desktop audio. Okay. Well, we're working on that. I think that's all we got there. Okay. I'll work on that. I had worked on putting some filters in with the mic to make everything work and be all nice and dandy. Perhaps we need to do a little bit extra. I've got the gain almost pushed to the max here on my soundboard. we'll go over to this one. So I've got it all the way pushed up. We're just a lot of volume here, but I'm not close to clipping. So I get what you're saying, but even in here, let's go to advanced properties. Everything's there. No. Rodecaster Pro. Enable down mixing. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I don't want any down mixing. Is that better? I don't know if it's good. I don't know. The condenser mics are weird. And so this is a dynamic. I don't think this is a condenser. I have a condenser at my office that I don't like, and it makes it more difficult. Let's go. So I have the pod mic. Let's take a look at the pod mic. It's a dynamic broadcast microphone. It's not a condenser mic. I get what you're saying. I'm using, I'll say this, Dave, I'm not going to say no worries. I appreciate you, you making the comment. I'm trying to make this all better. We'll head out here. I got to take a piss anyway. I use OBS, and with that, there are some funky things in here. If you don't have all your settings just right, or sometimes we need to go from like this scene to this scene to this scene. It would change some of the mic settings, and it didn't always translate quite across quite right. Or sometimes when I'm playing, playing a video over here, with this one, the video itself comes in louder sometimes. So it's all a mess. It's all a mess, and we're trying to get it all worked out. So I think I'm going to try to do a show. I have one that's, I think, it might interest you guys. We can talk about, the airplane. We can do all this kind of stuff. That's, I think, more along the lines of someone like No Way Jose. He does a great job into the conspiracy theory stuff. That's not really me. I like to take kind of what we did today and rip on people. I also like to do kind of legal stuff. That's more my my biz. There is a one I want to do, and I'd have a cycling podcast as well, and I think this one crosses over, there's a professional cyclist that ran over his wife last year. He's an Australian. And she died. So it's kind of the legal aspects and some of that going on, plus my knowledge of like him. And I don't know him at all personally, but I know of him, and he's got a little bit of a screw loose. So it's an interesting thing, and maybe we can break that down, go over the whole case. Maybe I'll do that this weekend, because that one I could just do, and then I could put it out to both platforms. So maybe have a crossover show. That would be very interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry about the show breaking down tonight. Really appreciate you being in here, David, JC, Jordan, Shannon, everyone else that showed up today. Appreciate it. And until then, we will see you tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow or Sunday. Put your notifications on, because you're going to get an extra one from me. See you guys.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder, for others, in other cases, whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. And then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you. You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. Why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.